Hello, old school movie reviews. Welcome to the apocalypse. I have a not so much a B movie, but it is pretty campy. This is Barbarella. Barbarella was a 1968 film starring Jane Fonda, directed by her then husband Roger Vadim. It was based on a then kind of raunchy European science fiction comic strip by Jean-Claude Forest. The script was written by Terry Southern, who was a famous writer at that time period, and the film also contains cameos by Anita Pallenberg, who was later the wife of Rolling Stone Keith Richards, and Marcel Marceau, who was a French actor and comedian. The film was produced by famous film producer Dino De Laurentiis, who's put up money for tons of movies throughout the decades, everything from Serpico to Conan the Barbarian to Hannibal. And this film, when it was originally released, it was rated M. The premise of Barbarella is basically it's a tongue-in-cheek sexy sci-fi romp. Barbarella is asked by the government of Earth to find the missing scientist named Duran Duran, and yes, this is where the rock band Duran Duran got their name from. The president thinks that Duran is developing a weapon on the planet Talsete, and he wants Barb to stop him and bring him back to Earth. Barbarella lands on the planet and has a series of adventures and meets various colorful characters, including but not limited to winged men, evil children, underground resistance fighters, and evil decadent aristocrats. Barbarella is presented as a sweet and charming kind of woman child, and sometimes her naivete leads her to be involved in various sticky situations. Sometimes these situations are sexual, sometimes they're dangerous, but her good nature and positive attitude allow her to persevere. Obviously, the film is pretty much trying to cash in on the whole kind of free love and if it feels good, do it vibe of the late 60s. However, it doesn't go quite to the extremes of being anti-establishment or counterculture like certain other movies that came out during that time period, like maybe Easy Rider, which ironically enough also had Terry Southern involved in the story, or maybe the youthful alienation of something like The Graduate. Now, as me watching this movie decades later, and as a person from a different generation, it almost kind of feels like it was mainstream Hollywood people trying to, just get in on some of that hedonism. Now, for a major release, some of the special effects in Barbarella are really cheesy, even by 1960s standards. The spaceship models not only look like models, but they're poorly shot. There's some terrible editing during some of the action scenes. You got creatures that look like they're made out of plastic and obviously are just being pulled across the floor by strings or something. It's also kind of funny to note like how much like shag carpeting is like used on all the sets and things. On a more positive side, a couple of set designs where they get to Sogo City look really nice. And Jane Fonda, she changes costumes like almost every 10 minutes in this movie. But, this is my opinion. I think she looks very attractive throughout, And some of those costume designs, even though they're from like 40 years ago, still hold up. That's just my opinion. Most of the actors do actually a pretty decent job with the material that they're given here, especially in my opinion, Fonda. Through her kind of expressions and mannerisms, she's actually able to convey, some nuances that really aren't there in the script, but help make Barbarella seem like an actual person with, an actual personality. Now, Barbarella is one of those films that didn't really do very well upon its initial release, but it gradually gained a following over the years. I'm not so sure exactly why it didn't do too good because camp and pop art were like all the rage at this particular time. So I don't think that it was too weird or ahead of its time or anything like that. Um, its failure might be due to whatever competing movies that were released at the same time. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But the movie isn't. What do I want to say? It's not like so bad that it's good. It's actually a movie where you go, "Wow, that's some interesting ideas here," and this is a little bit weird. But then you think about it and you say, "How come they obviously spent money on this aspect of it, but didn't spend any money on this aspect?" It's a flawed film. I think a lot of interest probably also comes from a lot of later interest, I should say, probably comes from the fact that it's one of the earlier movies by Jane Fonda, who later became renowned as this very, serious actress. And here's a movie that's the complete opposite of serious. It's very silly and it's very sexual. Um, But okay. Let's see here. Now, when it was released, it was related M, which was the equivalent of a modern day R rating. But despite the subject matter, it really isn't explicit at all. And I guess there was actually a PG version released in the late 70s, and I'm pretty sure it actually ended up on broadcast television at one point. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention that the visual that I'm using for here is the movie poster that was done by Boris Vallejo, who was a very popular fantasy artist back in the 70s and early 80s. You know, you've seen him do stuff like, on Conan the Barbarian or Tarzan or fantasy magazines or science fiction books and things like that. There's another movie poster that's pretty famous from this particular movie, done by Roger McGuinness, who did the James Bond stuff and lots of other movie posters during the 60s. But I use this Boris one because I just like it a lot better. Okay, anyway, that's it. I got to thank you very much for listening. Leave whatever comments you want. Thanks, and everybody have a great day.